Welcome to another episode of Everyday Leadership. Today, we have a captivating story of resilience, innovation, and the entrepreneurial spirit that's bound to resonate with every aspiring entrepreneur out there. In this episode, we sit down with Arjun Sundarajan, the CEO and founder of Zinc. Zinc is all about helping individuals build their brand through talk shows. But what's most interesting about Arjun's journey is that Zinc is his second startup. His first venture, Ambit, didn't go as expected. Today, Arjun takes us on a remarkable journey of self leadership, highlighting the pivotal moment when he had to chart a new course for his second startup. It's a story of how one individual navigated the ups and downs of entrepreneurship, learned from his experiences, and emerged stronger with a new vision. Whether you are an established entrepreneur, a budding startup enthusiast, or simply someone seeking inspiration and valuable insights, this episode has something in store for you. Join us as we uncover the transformative power of leadership within oneself and the path to building a brand, one talk show at a time. Stay tuned for a story that proves that every setback is just a stepping stone toward a brighter future. This is Everyday Leadership, and I'm your host, Pradeep Gaddam. Let's dive into the journey of Arjun Sundarajan and let it light your entrepreneurial path.
Awesome. Welcome, Arjun, to Everyday Leadership. This is a place where we talk about a lot of those real leadership happening around where people really lead themselves to different places at the same time, how they lead other people. These are not really world ending sort of leaders, but the leaders that have amazing stories to really tell. And I have with me today is Arjun. I've known Arjun for a long time. I knew Arjun when he was doing his first startup, and then now he's at Zinc, an interesting company where he's helping people put together shows and really build brands for themselves, which I think is clearly a place where the whole world is headed towards with all the influencers and everything that we'll obviously talk about what his journey now, but this episode will really focus on how did he make the transition from where he was and the kind of startup he did to the next startup in terms of what all things that he did before setting his eyes on this idea, and we sort of we'll also talk about what happened ever since he went on this journey. But with that, let me introduce Arjun. Arjun, start with a quick introduction of yourself and also tell us a bit about how you ended up where you are. Just give us a story. Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, thanks so much, Pradeep, for bringing me on this show. Yeah, I know I've known you for like about 7, 8 years right now. My career in technology started much earlier than that. As anyone, I came here for my grad school, ended up working at Microsoft as an intern, and then joined the company. And like just like that, like 7, 8 years go by when you're at like company like as big as Microsoft, and you could do anything you want over here. And that's kind of what happened for me. And then the entrepreneurial itch kicked in, and you wanted to do something. This was also the time when I realized, okay, there is this whole world of startups. I was doing a lot of side projects while I was still at Microsoft, not realizing that whatever I was doing was not anywhere close to like what startup building is. And then I took a bit of a plunge to move to Bay Area. I was in Seattle at that time. Moved to Bay Area, moved to San Francisco, and there I worked in a smaller company called Foursquare. It was like 150 people in that company, small when compared to where Microsoft was, of course, and kind of understood like what it means to start something from the ground up. Even though my Foursquare was like a mature product at that time, it gave me like quite a bit of a perspective. And then I was an entrepreneur in residence at this place called Stanford Research Institute, where again, you can see this pattern that like I did not jump directly into an entrepreneurial. I just like slowly dipped my toes, just got in, and then was an EIR along with a friend of mine at Stanford Research Institute, and from which we spun out my first startup called Ambit. And Ambit was in the space of voice technology, using voice to understand how humans communicate with each other and how teams talk with each other, and using technology to give them insights into their communication, giving them insights into how they can be better in communicating, presenting, talking to their teammates, building a good team. That's kind of what we did in our startup. And this was called Ambit. And we launched sometime in 2017, raised a bit of venture capital, and we went on to the market. This, I know that there is several companies who are still like kind of taking a crack at this. None of them have quite done it quite well. It's a hard problem of changing human behavior. It's trying to make people be better versions of themselves. It's which is a really hard problem. And we realized that like in the time that we had, and this was pre-Zoom era, pre-COVID era. So we were trying to put like microphones in people's like conference rooms. And it was a really hard thing for us to like take to market. And we ended up winding down the company sometime right before the pandemic hit. Took a bit of a break, spent almost like 6 to 8 months in starting what I called as like Arva Labs. Arva is the name of my daughter. And like I just created a labs company and like just spent like going wide, trying 15, 20 different projects, everything from like some as silly as like drawing like sketches on iPad and then putting that on the web, to like creating like Chrome plugins and like small projects, to like big ideas, to everything across the domain. And then slowly like figured out there were a couple of different segments that like drew my attention. Spent like nearly like 6 months on like exploring one project that was along children education, social emotional learning, and I spent quite a bit of time on that space. And then there was another project that was around again still around the idea of like how people come together in the virtual world now that like everything was going virtual. Everything from like board games to board meetings were happening online, and so we were still using Zoom for everything. Even now we use it for almost as like a tool for everything that we want when we are talking, communicating online. And I felt like different experiences require different interfaces, and they would make that experience like elevate. And that kind of was like the genesis of Zinc. And since then, like we've been using the platform for like adding value to many different use cases, from like how do you run like wide company wide meetings, to like team building meetings, to like you're running your webinars or launching your own shows. And like we've tried like few different iterations of this and kind of going on in that journey right now.
No, this is awesome. And if I were to really summarize this, your journey from Microsoft to Foursquare to Stanford Research Institute to becoming an entrepreneur in residence to Ambit to Zinc, and a small break between Ambit and Zinc. I have a quick question there, Arjun. So what is this entrepreneur in residence? I've never done this, but what is this concept? Do they take any equity as part of helping you launch yourself, or is that more like a platform where you get to meet other co-founders?
Yeah, I think there are different programs when it comes to the way that Stanford Research Institute did it. Is they are very lab style organization. They are a company and they have that, but most of the people who are working over there are building core technology without having a good idea of what would make sense as like practical applications of this. So what they do is invite entrepreneurs who would come there, who have unfettered access to all the different technology. So these are like typically like high cutting edge technology that they're working on. Like this, in this case, this was like back in 2016, 2017, when like voice technology was just taking over, being able to do like speaker segmentation or diarization. These are things that were academic at that point of time and slowly was starting to becoming mainstream. And so they would like give this technology to like entrepreneurs and like let them pitch to see whether this would make sense as a product, as like something that they can take to market. So they bring in the business sense, like we as entrepreneurs bring in the business sense, and like the teams over there would support us from a technical side of things, and they would license out their technology to us in some sense, like take a bit of equity in the company based on that, and then we would use that proprietary technology to be able to like make inroads and like sell that product and like get a piece of the market, and it's a win-win for everybody.
I see. That's very interesting. And with Ambit, uh, in retrospect, when you look back at it, what are some lessons that you would take from the entire experience with Ambit? Just give us a walkthrough in terms of what do you think would have gone wrong or what could have been. I know telling people what to do is something that nobody likes. And I also get the feeling, the difficulty of distributing a platform like this where it has to latch on, listen to people, which is a bit of an invasion into their privacy. But generally, with all the data that you have, can you do a quick retrospective of what went wrong with Ambit?
Yeah, for sure. Again, when a startup doesn't take off, like there are like so many things that can go wrong. I think like the top three in our case, I would say, are like one, there was like a huge behavior change component, and whenever you're going after something as strong as like you're asking people to change how they talk or how they do that, and that's kind of like how they would see value in it, you're taking a bigger bet, and these things don't happen in kind of the time frame that we were looking at. Like we raised a small amount of money and we were hoping that we would get something done in like 16 to 18 months and like see those results show up, and it was just really hard. Like these takes a lot of iteration, and like we should have gotten enough material and like made the plan to like stay in the market for a little bit longer if we had to do this. And so that was a misalignment from our end. I would say that's like one big thing. And then the second thing was like this whole entrepreneur in residence and like this SRI and everything, like the license, it gave us a little bit of headway when we were able to go into this. But another thing that happened is like very quickly that area started getting very commoditized. Like competing technologies started like coming out over there, some even better than what we had. And we were also like kind of stuck with the idea of like what we spun out and being able to use that. And we didn't have much scope to expand on it, or we didn't hire enough people who would be able to do like the core technology part of it, because we leaned a little bit heavy on the SRI part of it. And so for us, we were stuck with like a certain set of technology and tools that we could get and like go over there. So that was one thing. And then the third thing was also, I would say, like this was the first entrepreneur experience for me. And so there was a lot of like, team and co-founder and like figuring out like what would make sense and like aligning on that and being able to do this. These things take time, and it also always helps to like have a bit of history to go with your co-founder and like be able to like get that going. I'd say like we spent a lot of cycles in like aligning and like getting things going, which also like ate into a runway in some ways as well. The takeaway from that, I would say, is planning for like co-founder alignment and everything is very important, because it could make or break your company.
I see. Yeah, that's very interesting. But then great lessons, but whatever happened, you didn't give up. And that's like a true entrepreneur. And you didn't give up. In fact, you started just going even with a higher velocity, trying to explore various new ideas after that. But I'm also a bit curious, like what drives you? What is it that you want? I mean, as an entrepreneur, what is it that realistically, there's a lot of good category of people who say, I really want to solve this problem. And then there's another category, hey, I really want to make it to the top, make a lot of money, and I want to prove myself. And I hear many answers, and those are very honest, and I totally understand. I empathize with those answers as well. But if I were to ask you the same question, what is it that you were looking for as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think all those things about like the vanity of it that comes with it, like being able to like make that like high money and everything. I think those were less important to me, even from scratch. What was the most compelling for me is this ability to like come up with like your idea and create like that bigger impact of that idea changing the landscape for like a lot of people. And that's why like um some of the problems that I took then and also some of the problems that I'm taking right now are all like a little bit low percentage chance in terms of like success. The reason for it is because we are like looking for like that behavior change or like that big shift that you can make. And I'm kind of like a little bit humbled by it right now, and like it's too audacious, and like sometimes it like repeatedly doing that like hits you. But um, I think trying to like make that big impact and change is what drove me to it, and it's been exciting. I think like irrespective of the fact of whether the startup takes off or not, being able to build that product, giving it to the hands of people, seeing how it shapes, and like getting that, even if it doesn't like go beyond like a lot of people, seeing that impact is like good enough to keep me going. And it's honestly what has kept me on this for as long as it has.
Awesome. Yeah, that's impact. I totally understand what it means to build something and then have some impact on the world. Uh, but now let's understand, how did you navigate yourself? There is a fair amount of ambiguity when you want to really do your next startup. I would love to understand, what are those things that you were cautious about? Hey, these are the things that this idea should have. It should have, set in, like, for example, if you didn't want to go and change the behaviors of people, but rather do something else. So what kind of framework did you have as you started exploring various ideas after?
Yeah. Once you do something, you notice so many things that you did, like small things that like went wrong or so. I'd probably say even before I think about like the idea or like think about this, there was almost like a mindset shift that I had set up before I got into it. That was a lot more important to me and like let me continue with this than the actual product or like actual idea itself. That has to do with like uh there's just so much inner dialogue that happens in your head, and like so much like self-doubt and so much like, oh my god, opportunity cost, I could be like working at like some like startup over here or like Google or Microsoft or like making like 5x 10x more than like what I'm making right now, and like all those inner monologue that's going on in your head as to like whether you're like optimizing this. I think for me, like it was like a more humbling things to like realize that like I'm not trying to like fall into the comparison game, and I'm trying to do like ride my journey myself. And like I think if I actually like make enough to pay my bills, and like I don't have to live that life, drive that car, or like live in that city, live with that lifestyle. And it was a hard call, and like I had to like not only like like quieten my inner chatter, but like also get like buy-in from my family, my support structure, to be able to say that like we can do this. This was a big part of it, irrespective of what idea or what it is to say that like I am taking this journey and that like I am going to like go at it with that passion. And if it comes, whatever comes out of it is like a success one way or the other, is like the mindset that I actually had to like shift into. It's hard. I would say that like you wake up like every few days and still like question that, and like you come up with that. But correcting that and like sort of making that into an internal monologue that goes in your head is one of the biggest things that I would say that helped me sustain this journey in a way that's not stressful. It's not in a way that I don't get burnt out, in a way that I feel like I enjoy this journey. And since then, like I actually have like enjoyed every aspect of it. Like it's tremendous learning because when I first did it, like I was helming the hat of like the chief technology officer, and for this round, like I'm doing everything from like the product as well as the business side of things, which includes like marketing, sales, go to market, and everything. And like everything is a learning experience and learning it from scratch, and like it's just so much overwhelming and everything, but I'm just enjoying that experience as it comes and like learning through the process. um it's been like super helpful for me to like take that like learning mindset, and that like I am going to like go through this journey learning and trying these things out. And that's helped a lot. And then practically as well, right? Like there were like so many from a product and everything. There was just so many ways in which I realized that like I think these are the kind of bets that you can take. How can we quickly experiment, learn, move on? And like I figured out that. And so this journey, even though like I would say like we have not yet like cracked the product market fit or anything of that sort, still I have taken like far more many shots at goal and tried so many more different things that I feel really comfortable in saying that like when that didn't take off, like there was just like a really good reason why it didn't happen. And I'm learning much faster and like doing that. And I think that came from the experience of running that startup before. And then also like connecting with like newer people and like having that new ideas, like just sort of fresh flow in as well, has been tremendous that way.
I see. And that's very helpful. And did you have any product features that you didn't want to compromise, like inherent virality or easy to onboard customers? And should I be looking at enterprise customers? Did you do any explorations around barrier of entry upfront? And or you just thought, this is the right time. There is a lot of people that are going to need virtual meetings, and you can crack the right time. Did you really think about go to market though before you ventured on this idea?
Absolutely. I mean, I think like you got to like draw your lean canvas, or at least like the semblance of what it is, right? Like, hey, who's the market you're going to go after, and like what is the kind of product that you're going to build? One thing is like I treated all of them as experiments. And so for me, like it wasn't as if like I felt like so good about this, that this is what I'm going to do and I'm really sure that this is going to work out, was never the case. And I felt really good about some of those things, but I didn't have like enough to say that that's going to like work out. So for me, like it was a bunch of experiments that I'm running to like validate like how it is. And like for us, some experiments we ran as quickly as like say like 2 months or like even like 6 weeks or so. We would like run some landing page experiments and like learn from that, and then like we will realize that's not going to work out and then like move on from that. So it's having all these different things and then like being able to like try those experiments and like learning from that is the biggest thing over there. So there was no like one reason why like an experiment doesn't work. Like for example, like there would not be a need for it. We would try to like put like this landing page and we would get like thousands of clicks, but nobody would ever go in and like really use the product or anything like that. And then that would mean that like move on from that and then like try something else. And so we would run like hundreds of experiments. Another thing was that like none of this was like my baby. Like, it's like, oh my God, like I love this so much that I'm going to do this and I'm going to make it work. Everything is like, I'm going to be able to like try this out as much as it merits, kill it, move on if it doesn't work out, and then like try the next thing. And so that's kind of like the approach that I've taken with this. And it's been good. I would say like, it's like the roller coaster is a lot more manageable. The roller coaster exists, but it's a lot more manageable when you have that kind of mindset.
And one quick follow-up question there is, how do you decide when to kill it and move on, and when to continue persisting with something? Because I have been in that situation many times. It's always a hard call. You don't know whether you need to pour more money or get better at advertisements, or the traffic or top of the funnel may not be wrong. Do you have any framework in really figuring out when to move on and when to invest more?
Yeah, it's actually a big judgment call. And I feel like I don't think I feel very confident about what framework it is, whether it's working. Yeah, you're right. It's like, it's almost like, am I just like 2 hits away from striking gold? Or am I like so like lost that like I'm nowhere close to it? Like it's just so hard to tell. I think like it's a mix of a bit of quantitative and qualitative as well. Like one sort of ballpark that I usually maintain is like, if I were to like take a similar service in that same segment And if I were to like think about like what I would expect in the next 3 months to be able to achieve when you do something like this, just come up with like what that would be and then like stick to it and put that in some paper and say like, it's like I need to be able to get like 50 signups in the next 2 months, or like I need to be able to get like at least 5 paying customers in the next 6 weeks or something along those lines. And if I don't get that, like that's obviously no reason to say that like it's definitely a failure, but you would know whether it was you aimed at 5 and it was 4. Then you can be like, it's like then you can make a call, like, you try like running an experiment for a few more days or so. It's not like a hard and fast thing, but at least it's a ballpark. If you kind of like have a plan in mind, that would make sense. So sometimes it's been like just getting enough traffic, or like sometimes it's been like getting so many paid customers. Many times it's been like usage, getting people passionately complaining about that this is working or this is not working. And that's probably sometimes where it is, and like getting to that stage. So it's not like always a quantitative, but roughly quantitative, right? Like you should like have like some idea of that, and then saying I'm going to run it until then. You get to 80% of it, then you can make a judgment call. If you get to like 20% of it, then like, it's time to like accept reality and move on.
Awesome. That's awesome. That sort of makes sense. And I know we will be it's enlightening to really understand your journey all the way to Zinc. Before we sort of wind down the show, obviously we'll talk more about as you gather a bit more context and experiences through it. Do you want to just talk about what Zinc is and give it help users or listeners really understand how Zinc can help them and what kind of our audience can really benefit from using Zinc?
Yeah, absolutely. So Zinc is helping people launch their own show. People includes there are the startups and companies are now realizing that video marketing, especially short form video marketing, is a huge way in which they can actually like appeal to people. And there's so many content marketing strategists are like talking about this idea of your pillar content, and which could be something like this interview that we're having, and then being able to atomize it or like create micro content out of this, and then being able to use that to distribute and like create enough brand presence for your company, for your brand. It's quite the playbook that people are like doing right now, but it's just so hard to run a show and doing everything associated with it. And you're running a show like this, and everything from like getting your speakers, lining them up, like like scheduling a time, to like preparing the run of the show, what should be the discussion points, to like then taking this video and then like converting it into like many different multi-platform content, like SEO. Can you like make this into like websites, web pages? Can you create carousels that can go on LinkedIn? So Zinc makes all of that automatic. So you run the show, 15, 20 minutes later, it's taken all of that content and created this content kit that's ready for you to like start distributing. And we do this automatically. One of the unique things that we also do is taking your audience and bringing them to your live show. So it's not just you recording a show with somebody. It's almost like, think about it as like a talk show with a live studio. So you could bring your prospects, you could bring your customers, and you could like convert their conversation that you're having with them into content. And you can do that in the platform. And that's something that unique we do. We allow you to bring hundreds of people live to your show and then like convert that into content as well. So companies who are like wanting to launch a show for their brand, solopreneurs or professional services, people who are like looking to like build their brand for their companies, that's another segment. And as well as creators or like want to be entrepreneurs who are using this as a platform for like customer discovery, because you're talking to people, learning about them. Now, how great would it be to like convert that into content and generate a brand and a following for you that you can later convert into your and so we take all these playbooks and like make it ridiculously easy to do that in our platform.
Awesome. Yeah, I totally connect. And now that I've been recording these shows, and it's so difficult to move content from one place to the another place, and then and then refine it, tweak it, edit it, and then upload it to another place, manage it in a fourth place. It's all across many platforms. I think streamlining all of this can be extremely beneficial. But really appreciate, Arjun, for your time, and we will come back and we will talk about the rest of the journey in another episode very soon. But really appreciate you taking your time and coming here on this show and be very candid about what happened before and how you really navigated through all the ambiguity and arrived at your second startup. Good luck with that, and then we'll see you very soon.
Thanks, Pradeep. Thanks for having me. I had fun talking to you.